My name's Hugh Fraser, I'm 29 years old. I work for John Berry in Newmarket as his assistant trainer, and I've worked here for 4 years. I went to the racing school in 1996 when I was 16 years old. I was working for Nigel Twiston Davis at the time, and I was sent there to do my MVQ too. Absolutely loved it. Spent 10 weeks there. It was the best 10 weeks of my life, I think. I met some great people, quite a few of whom I'm still in touch with now, some of them good friends with still. Yeah, and it was a great experience. After that I went back to Nigel Twiston Davis's, but then I started to feel a little bit homesick. I was only 16 years old, I was the youngest person in the yard, couldn't really do much of an evening, got quite lonely at times, so went back home to my parents in Scotland. I was at home for about 6 months and things just weren't going well at all. It wasn't a particularly nice place to live. Didn't have the best relationships with my parents, and in the end it just got a bit too much for me, and I left home. I just ran away from home. I tried to get back to Cheltenham. I had a ticket for a train journey that I thought would get me back to Cheltenham. Got on a train at Glasgow, realised the ticket was out of date, and I had to get off at the next stop, which was Carlisle, which was a long way from home and a long way from Cheltenham. So I got off the train at Carlisle, didn't really know what to do, so I went to the nearest police station and I just said, explained the situation. They told me they would have to get in touch with social services, who, if I didn't want to go back home, unless there was someone else that they could think of that I could think of that could help me. So I suggested ringing the racing school in Newmarket, speaking to Rory McDonald, who was always very good to me when I was at the racing school, to see if they could possibly help me. They rung the racing school and they were quite happy to pay for me to get down to Newmarket. They said they would put me up and help me find a job down there and just basically make sure I was okay. So I travelled down to Newmarket, stayed at the racing school for a further 10 weeks. They gave me money to buy clothes, they got me a job working with Chris Wall in town, and they basically just made sure I got back on my feet and I was okay. So went to work for Chris Wall. I became his travelling head lad in the end, and I think I was the youngest travelling head lad in town at that time. That was a good job. Absolutely loved it there as well. And during the time there, the racing school kept in touch with me to make sure everything was going okay, that I was well, and if there's anything else they could possibly help me with. So that was very good of them. Well, if they hadn't paid for me to come to Newmarket and help me look for a job, I probably wouldn't have had any choice but to go back to Glasgow, and it just wasn't a very nice place to live. I dread to think what I'd be doing in my life now if it wasn't for the racing school. I know a lot of people from home that they've done nothing with their lives. It's just a very depressing place to live. And when I was in the police station that day, I was adamant that I was not going to go back there, and I was just praying that the racing school would help me. And thankfully, Rory McDonald, he's an absolute star, and he made sure I was going to be okay. So yeah, if it hadn't been for the racing school, I would have ended up back in Glasgow, and I just dread to think what my life would be now. I work for John Berry now. I've been here for 4 years. It's a good job, I enjoy it. We're only a small yard. The most horses we'd ever have at any one time is 20 horses, but it's enough to be going on with anyway. Yeah, I work. I'm John's assistant trainer. He's been very good to me as well. He's allowed me to have my own horse in the yard, which the plan is to go point to point in with. That's the plan anyway. And he's another one. I've been very, very lucky since I come back to Newmarket. The 3 trainers I've worked for in Newmarket since I came back have all been absolute gentlemen, and they'd do anything to help me. So no, I'm very, very lucky. I'm working for a good boss. I would love to train one day. That would be the ultimate dream anyway. But I'm quite happy for the time being, training point to point, and see what comes of that.
Hugh, I think, is probably as good an advertisement for the racing school as you could get, really, because he's such a nice man, and life's, you know, settled down well for him, and he's a really everything that a good racing lad should be. And I mean, I'd like to think that his life's going very well, which probably wind back 15 years ago, he's probably having a troubled time. And I think it's thanks to the racing school that he, you know, found direction and had the practical help to get himself started on what's I hope he'd think is quite a successful route down life. And no, I think if the racing school can keep helping people the way they've helped him, then it's doing a really, really good job.
And why do you support the racing school? You take quite a few students from the school. Why do you do that?
I think because they're not the finished article, and they never will be. It probably takes you 15 years to become the finished article, but you know that they've had a very good grounding, and the reason why people can become the sort of complete all-round horseman is if they get the basics right in the first place. And once you've got those in place, then it's just experience and you know, learning as you go along that helps you to get things, you know, perfect things. But it's knowing the basics to build on in the first place, and when youngsters come out of the racing school, they pretty much do know.
And you've got 2 students currently from the racing school, is that right?
That would be correct, yes, because I mean, Adam's older, and I mean, I think he possibly went to, I have a feeling he might have gone to the old Goodwood Racing School very briefly when he started, because you do sometimes meet lads in their mid-40s that did. But since it's become pretty much standard for the youngsters to come out of it, it's a lot less hit or miss as to what start they will have had in their careers. So I mean, as I say, Hugh's turned into an absolutely first-rate stableman and first-rate person, really. And Hannah's probably 13 years younger than Hugh. She's just starting out, but I mean, you couldn't really ask for someone to have made a better start. And I think the fact that she has is to a large degree responsible not just for the teaching she's had at the racing school, but for the encouragement she's got from it as well.